Cheers, guys. Epics 911. Welcome to the Thursday, April 20th, 2017, aka 420 2017 edition of VR News. All right, let's jump into VR News and start with one of the games that I featured in my VR year in review video. It had to do with my top 12 virtual reality games for the year. Arizona Sunshine and a new map. Originally, this was going to be part of more like a DLC style release. Instead, they've done it as a new map. It's called Undead Valley, and it's a map for the game's cooperative Horde mode. So you and buddies, or you and strangers and buddies, play this with increasingly more difficult waves. You've got your scarcity of weapons and ammo that you've got to divide up between the group. Very, very cool sounding. And yet, oddly, I have never tried the cooperative play. I've only played the single player, and I highly recommend the game. Like I said, it's in my top 12. Just haven't had a chance to play the cooperative, but sounds fun. Next news piece. The Tilt Brush devs hacked together essentially a potter's wheel using the Vive tracker and Tilt Brush. Now, the author from Road to VR pointed out, I think rather accurately, it probably would look a hell of a lot cooler with medium, because medium, of course, works with clay, and a potter's wheel, just clay would be more natural, but it still looks pretty damn cool on Tilt Brush. Unfortunately, the devs were quick to dampen anybody's expectations or enthusiasm by saying it's not going to see the commercial light of day, which is too bad. Even as a, free release, I can't imagine that would be too hard for them to code. That would be pretty cool. For those people who have a tracker, it'd be a quick and dirty way to guarantee at least one application you can use with that tracker right out of the gate. Might even prove popular for their sales, but nonetheless, not the path they're going down. Fair enough, that is up to them, but cool all the same. All right, the next news piece. This has to do with one of my favorite naturists, Sir David Attenborough. He has been a favorite of mine since I've been a kid. Lorne Green, another one, Canadian Lorne Green, and his nature shows. But yeah, I just always love this guy. His voice is instantly recognizable. If you're somebody who loves nature documentaries, you may not even know his name. Okay, maybe somebody who casually watches them, but you're going to know the sound and instantly recognize it. That is Sir David Attenborough. And not a stranger to VR, apparently. Even in his octogenarian years, he's been flirting with virtual reality, which is very, very cool. He, of course, his last popular series is, of course, Planet Earth, which is well worth watching. Like I said, if you're into nature documentaries, do not miss Planet Earth. Watch that in 1080p. Apparently a 4K version is either out or being worked on. I remember reading something, but get it and watch it. Very cool. Now, this is probably going to be similar to a virtual museum type experience. You get to put it on and see a 3D hologram of Sir David within the museum experience, explaining various displays and things that are on topic. So, produced by devs Factory 42 and commissioned by Sky VR Studio. Next news piece. Jimmy Kimmel and a big subsection of the internet has either made fun or kind of ripped into Facebook's Spaces, which of course is the social VR app that they launched into a very rough beta the other day at their F8 conference. Now, I've linked a couple. There's two articles. One from Upload VR, which is the Jimmy Kimmel story, and basically he spoofs the experience with the kind of gags you would expect, right? Making fun of the social in an antisocial way because, you've got shut-ins, hikikomoris, basically being social in the game in an antisocial way. And then there's also a survey out that suggests that social VR is the least used genre right now. And I thought that was interesting. I'll get to that in a second. But I've also included a YouTube video for Nate, who I've talked about the other day. He does virtual reality gaming playthrough videos, kind of like the Quick Look series. He shows a little bit of the gameplay and then moves on to a different game, with his next episode. Anyways, he did one on this, and he shows quite a bit of the game. Now, he seems to enjoy it. Me personally, I think it looks very rough, and I'm going to side with those who, stated in their reviews, it doesn't look that inspiring yet. There's nothing there to get me excited. And this is where those statistics come in. Now, statistics, well, we don't need to get into that, but statistics aren't always the most reliable things on the planet. We know that, but for the sake of this, let's just get into it anyways. The Entertainment Software Association, they surveyed 4,000 people. They didn't get into demographics of the individuals, just that 74%, those who use either PC or console VR, so Rift, Vive, PlayStation, mostly played single-player virtual reality experiences. When the same question was asked of mobile, it was almost half, 48%. So how many are playing stuff like the Facebook Spaces? Well, it's a pretty grim statistic. 19% between Rift, Vive, and PlayStation VR owners. 15% for mobile users. So very, very low statistics. But to kind of be expected. And I'm going to elaborate on what my complaint is about it and why I'm not so excited, thrilled about it. And it has to do with the limited things that you can do. What they're trying to do is put the individual and the people that that individual socializes with in these kind of real life settings that are 360 degree. And I get that. But for me personally, I just don't like the avatar technology. I know Facebook, they kind of want to go with that avatar look, but to me it's too simplistic for people to get excited about. If they can come up with some way to make the avatars look more impressive, either actually based on you, some way, and we've talked about technologies like this in the past where you could get a photograph of yourself and somehow import that as the basis of your in-game avatar. That would be awesome. But unfortunately, that's not what they're doing. So yeah, that's part of the disappointment for me. And just the activities. They just don't look very exciting. One point, you see them drawing hats to put on. Exciting? No, not really. I can do that with real, anyways, I know I'm being a little down on it, but hey, that's a valid thing and I'm allowed to have an opinion. Make it exciting for me, make it something I want to try. And I've been a guy who's been very supportive of the potential for VR as a social platform. And yet this doesn't inspire me because it's not inspiring. It's a bunch of lame activities kind of hobbled together with horrible looking avatars, in my opinion, that don't inspire me to even want to generate one, in a bunch of locales that just, they're basically disjointed with what you're given. They're so hyper realistic compared to the really bad cartoony avatars. It just doesn't work, in short, for me. How about you guys? What are your thoughts on Spaces? And like I said, this isn't social VR in general. I'm specifically talking about Spaces here. I'm actually very positive on social VR's potential. Next news piece. The Silicon Valley Comic Con is basically just around the corner, April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Traditionally, this started out as a comic con, i.e., it was about comics, comic characters, superheroes, DC, Marvel, independents. Around the last decade, it's been about more, well, let's say a little bit more, probably the last 2 decades. It's been about TV shows and movies and more kind of popular media as well, with anime, etc., and manga thrown in. This year, however, another addition, and that is VR. And there's actually a lot of virtual reality taking place at this Comic-Con, which I think is pretty cool. Everything from sports car demonstrations like the Acura NSX, which you can view in virtual reality, and one of my favorite authors of all time. Now, admittedly, I have a hell of a lot of favorite authors. He being one of them, Tracy Hickman, one of my favorite fantasy authors. He's giving a presentation about storytelling in VR. And like I said, it's chock full all 3 days, filled with either presentations, keynotes and stuff on virtual reality or displays of technology, hardware, software, etc. I've got the link. You can check out the guide and see some of those for yourself. All right. The next story, a VR game that ties in directly to what I was talking about yesterday. And you guys gave me a lot of feedback on that. Still haven't been able to reply to as much as I want. But the feedback was pretty much overwhelmingly, I don't want VR in my brain. And you know what? That's kind of my opinion too. First of all, I just want it to be studied more. And that's kind of what I was alluding to and joking around with it a bit in the episode from the other night. You know, the old tale about the cellular signals possibly causing tumors or contributing to that, apparently unfounded after much study, that kind of thing. Well, this is a new technology that operates completely differently. I just want that to be tested, FCC, etc., right? By some safety regulation bodies before I would tinker with it. And even then, yeah, while it might be fun to try stuff, you know, I'd want to make sure that my privacy is protected, that my brain waves aren't being dumped into some database somewhere. But with all of that said, this company from Belarus called 4i Labs, they're an independent studio there. They have created basically a virtual reality peripheral for your head, and it basically works very roughly with your brain waves. So your brain and this device, which they're calling the Muse, it's basically a headband that can sense in a very rough way your brain activity. And what it does is it uses electroencephalography, which is EEGs, to record the electrical activity of brain cell groups. And really what it does is it basically just is able to tell if you're using your brain or you're not. It's not reading actual specific thoughts. In other words, if you're focused on something, like I'm looking at you guys in the camera and I am focusing on that lens and I'm really thinking about my memory card and the battery indicator, my brain activity would be going, and whatever action I need to do in the game that they've created would be happening. Completely zoning out, pulling a 420 and just kind of sitting there with a dumb stare, indicating no brain activity, would stop the action. So in other words, telekinesis, right? Picking something up, focus, stop focusing, it drops. That's basically how it works in a nutshell. Kind of cool, but, you know, the paranoid guy in me just wants a little bit of an assurance that 4i Labs has looked into this technology and, you know, there's no unwanted side effects. All right, guys, that is it for the news on this Thursday. There will be another Missing Gaming Friday, and unfortunately, this one will not take place Saturday or Sunday, as Exidy has a work project taking place on all those days. So unfortunately, that is postponed. We're going to miss a week. May do a double-header, 48-hour game-a-thon, because it's going to be one of the last weekends I get to see my buddy Exidy before I make the move. All right, guys, that is it. As always, cheers, guys.